papeles ha, kailangan niya yun.
Ang babaeng yun, ang iyong mama, ipangako mo na magiging mabait ka sa kanya. Mangako ka. Mabait ka talaga. Kayakap nga si Papa.
This program is supported by North Luzon Express Terminal, RJK Services Manpower.
The U.S. Capitol to call for action after a mass shooting left 19 school children and 2 teachers dead in Texas.
What do we do?
More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
Business community all thumbs up for President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s economic team. COVID alert level 1 still up in Metro Manila and 86 other provinces from June 1 to 15. Police say Uvalde shooter walked into the school unobstructed. A key advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reveals that Russian troops have taken over the town of Liman. And actor Ray Liotta and musician Andy Fletcher of Depeche Mode pass away.
President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s economic team has been well received by the business sector. Moira Encina has the details.
The business community has welcomed President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s nominees for his economic team. Marcos Jr. nominated BSP Governor Benjamin Jocno as his finance secretary, Monetary Board member Felipe Medalla as the BSP chief, and former UP President Alfredo Pascual as DTI secretary. Marcos Jr. earlier announced he wanted Arsenio Balisacan to come back as the chief of the National Economic and Development Authority, a position Balisacan held during the time of former President Noynoy Aquino. In a statement, PCCI President George Barcelon describes the incoming economic managers as seasoned and competent. Barcelon adds that PCCI is convinced the appointment of the incoming economic team would result in investor confidence, both local and foreign. PCCI says the country is fortunate to have a strong foundation and be recognized as one of the fastest-growing economies in Asia. However, the business organization admits that some policy issues need to be addressed to accelerate the country's growth momentum. This is Moira Encina, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The agriculture sector expects the incoming Marcos administration to strengthen the local producers against importation. In an interview with Net25's program Kada Umaga, Chairman Rosendo So of the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG said President-elect Bongbong Marcos Jr. should choose someone who will not depend on importation but instead prioritize locally produced agricultural products. So earlier said, Marcos Jr. wants to encourage local farmers to plant in order to ensure food security and make the country self-reliant.
Nakikita natin yung tinututok ng ating incoming president is yung towards local production na in which nakikita natin advantageous dito sa ating mga magsasaka. And kung tinututukan niya is yung seeds, no? I hope na continue ito na may courage ang ating magsasaka. Sa ngayon kasi kasama rin kasi natin mga feed miller ang direction talaga nila is to buy local corn. No? mas malaki part, local corn kaysa yung wheat na galing sa Ukraine and other countries na tumataas. No? So may advantage sa ating mga local farmers na may buyer, no, sa ating bansa. So, ibig sabihin, kasi pagka umasa ka palagi sa importation, talagang mangangamba ka kasi nakita natin ang administrasyon nito, no? Na ang DA Secretary very dependent dun sa importation. Kaya nangangamba siya. Pero kung ang susunod na secretary towards yung local production, sa tingin ko mas hindi siya mangangamba kasi ang projection niya is towards yung local produce and lalaki yung local production.
Malacanang has welcomed the statement of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on his openness to have his predecessor lead his administration's anti-drug war. At a palace briefing, acting deputy spokesman Undersecretary Chris Ablan said the decision whether to accept the position of anti-drug czar or not lies with the President Rodrigo Duterte. Ablan said President Duterte had already mentioned he would continue his advocacy against illegal drugs even after his term ends on June 30. The official said it is better to await President Duterte's decision on what role he will play under the incoming Marcos administration.
Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, or DENR, Undersecretary Jonas Leones says the next administration will have to deal with the effects of climate change and calamities. Leones thus proposes to continue the programs of the current administration and strictly implement environmental laws. Leones asked the next administration to continue the task force Build Back Better, a task force that will streamline and expedite post-disaster efforts. He also said the President Duterte created the task force so that after calamities, the government agencies will have a comprehensive approach and work together to restore affected areas. Leones also advised the next administration to strictly implement environmental laws to alleviate the problems in waste disposal in some local government units.
Metro Manila will remain under COVID-19 Alert Level 1 until June 15. Deputy Presidential Spokesman Chris Ablan made the announcement citing Resolution 168A, which was approved by the Interagency Task Force on the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF. Aside from Metro Manila, 86 other provinces and component cities and municipalities will be under Alert Level 1 from June 1 to June 15. These include Abra, Ilocos Norte, Batanes, Aurora, Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Pampanga, Tarlac, Angeles City, Olongapo City, Batangas, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Lucena City, Marinduque, Albay, Aklan, Siquijor, Biliran, Zamboanga City, Bukidnon, Iligan City, Surigao del Sur, and Butuan City, among others. Under Alert Level 1, intrazonal and interzonal travel is not allowed to all ages and those with comorbidities. All establishments may likewise operate in full capacity.
Fully vaccinated and boosted travelers will no longer need to present a pre-departure COVID-19 test starting May 30. Let's find out why in this report from Randy Bernardino.
Beginning Monday, the Philippines will no longer require fully vaccinated and boosted inbound travelers to present a COVID-19 test. Tourism Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat announced this following the approval of a resolution to ease some travel requirements to encourage tourist arrivals in the country. Based on the resolution approved by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Infectious Diseases, or IATF, the travelers should be aged 18 years or older and should have received a complete primary dose of COVID-19 and a booster shot. Also exempted from the pre-departure testing requirement are ages 12 to 17 who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and those below 12 regardless of vaccination status as long as they are accompanied by their parents or guardians. Puyat said the move will go a long way toward promoting Philippine tourism and helping those left unemployed. The DOT chief said the country will recognize all types of vaccination certificates from any country of origin. Based on DOT data, February 10 to May 25, foreign tourist arrivals have reached 517,516, majority of which came from the United States, South Korea, Canada, and Australia. This is Randy Bernardino reporting for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Malacanang announced the removal of the medical insurance requirement for students attending limited face-to-face classes. Deputy Palace spokesperson Chris Ablan said upon the recommendation of the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, the COVID-19 task force repealed Section 4 Item H of the CHED-DOH Joint Memorandum Circular pertaining to medical insurance for students. Earlier this year, the government allowed colleges and universities under COVID-19 Alert Level 1 to hold in-person classes at full capacity. But those attending physical classes must be enrolled in PhilHealth or any insurance provider. There are no details yet as to why CHED made the recommendation. But some student organizations criticize the medical insurance requirement, saying that not all students can afford health insurance plans.
Post-election, the Philippine government pushes through with its vaccination efforts. Wayne De La Fuente reports.
The rate of vaccination against COVID-19 has increased according to Health Undersecretary Mirna Cabotaje, the chair of the National Vaccination Operations Center, or NVOC. Cabotaje said almost 200,000 jobs are recorded daily compared to less than 100,000 prior and on the election day. A total of 69.1 million Filipinos have been fully vaccinated, representing 76.8% of the population. The health official is confident that the government will be able to reach its target of fully vaccinating 77 million Filipinos by the end of President Rodrigo Duterte's term on June 30.
As of May 26, meron na tayong 73.7 million na mga nabakunahan with first at least one dose. Tapos yung fully vaccinated natin ay nasa 69.11 million or about 76.87% of the population. Medyo tumaas na ng konti, nakaka 200,000 a day jobs na tayo.
Cabotaje said they also noticed an increase in vaccination uptake even in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region where the vaccination rate is low.
Sa BARM, nagkaroon sila ng special vaccination day noong May 11 to May 20. We were also in Marawi. Maganda-ganda ang pagrampa ng pagbakunahan nila nung special vaccination day. So tumaas naman ng bahagya yung ating BARM. No, they were able even to one day in one area 500. No, that is more than the average jobs per day.
The NVOC said 171,848 individuals have got their second booster shot. Majority of them are senior citizens, followed by health workers and the immunocompromised. Meanwhile, Cabotaje said they have started endorsing NVOC's COVID response function to different bureaus under the Department of Health in preparation for the transition of government.
The IATF na siyang overall ng NTF at saka yung ating vaccine cluster is prepared to hand over the documents and to brief. We just await kung ano yung directions ng susunod na administration. Of course, we will also defer kung sino man yung mga bagong secretary. Alam naman natin that the IATF is lodged with the Department of Health, tapos yung mga measures, yung vaccination are largely with the Department of Health.
This is Weng de la Fuente reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Vince Dizon, presidential advisor for COVID-19 response, urged Filipinos to get their booster shot, warning that its low uptake could be a factor in a possible surge in infections. He said more people are becoming more complacent as Metro Manila and more areas stay under alert level 1 for months due to low number of cases. Dizon added that many may be thinking there is no more COVID, hence there is a need to remind them that COVID is still here and health authorities are recording cases of the Omicron variant that is hitting America, Europe, and some parts of Asia. He also pointed out the importance of second booster shots that are helpful for numbers of priority groups like frontline healthcare workers and senior citizens, insisting that without getting a boost, it is possible to get infected. Dizon noted that the government has already decentralized the vaccination system to make inoculation more accessible to the public. As of May 26, the Department of Health recorded only 13.9 million individuals who received their first booster shots, far from 69.9 million people who completed their first and second doses.
Health Undersecretary Mirna Kabutahe said it is up to the incoming Marcos administration if it will continue the National Task Force Against COVID-19 or NTF and the National Vaccination Operations Center or NVOC. At the Laging Handa briefing, Kabutahe said the IATF, which heads the NTF and vaccine cluster, is prepared to hand over the documents and brief the succeeding administration. The NTF was established in March 2020 to unify the mobilization of government assets in addressing the COVID-19 situation, while the NVOC was created to support the government's COVID-19 vaccine cluster. Meanwhile, Kabutahe confirmed the DOH is already endorsing some of the tasks of the NVOC to concerned bureaus. Up next, authorities declare dengue outbreak in Zamboanga. Senegal's president fires health minister over the death of 11 newborn babies in a hospital fire. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urges the West to stop playing around with Russia and impose tougher sanctions on Moscow. All these and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Sa bawat sumbong may responding katapat, hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sino man ang nangangailangan. Dalawang senior citizen na bulag dahil sa posibleng ammonia leak sa likod lamang ng kanilang tahanan, ating natulungan. Isang mahabang sidewalk sa Caloocan na ilang taong ginawang extension ng mga junk shop sa lugar, nasampulan ng MMDA. Biktima ng isang car rent tangay modus, dumulog sa responde. At sa ating e-responder, grupong tumutulong sa pagpaparami at pagsagip sa mga pawikan at iba pang hayop ating sasaluduhan. Mapapanood nyo kami sa mga sumusunod na mga channels. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. The local government of Zamboanga City has declared a dengue outbreak. The local government unit reported 2,026 dengue cases, including 19 fatalities from January 1st to May 14. The number of cases for the said period was 1,793% higher compared to the 107 reported cases in 2021. Anti-dengue campaigns like fogging operations and other measures to eliminate dengue-causing mosquitoes were already initiated by the city government. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said the Department of Health's field epidemiologists are also monitoring the dengue cases in Zamboanga, Sibugay, Zamboanga del Sur, and Isabela City in Basilan due to high number of dengue cases. Duque added that the onset of the rainy season in the country is a contributory factor to the rise of dengue cases in several areas in the country.
More information is coming out about that school shooting in Texas that left 19 young children and 2 teachers dead. A spokesman for the Texas Department of Public Safety is now saying doors to the school were not locked. Victor Escalon says no one stopped the gunman from entering the building.
It was reported that a school district police officer confronted the suspect that was making entry. Not accurate. He walked in unobstructed initially. So from the grandmother's house to the bar ditch to the school, into the school, he was not confronted by anybody.
Parents have been critical of the response by police when the shooting started. They say the police waited too long before taking action. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says U.S. President Joe Biden and his wife will visit Uvalde this Sunday.
On Sunday, the President and the First Lady will travel to Uvalde to grieve with the community that lost 21 lives in the horrific elementary school shooting. We will have more to share as we get closer. But while he's there, the president will meet with the community leaders, religious leaders, and the families of the victim.
Gun control activists and lawmakers rallied outside the U.S. Capitol and in New York to call for action after a mass shooting left 19 school children and 2 teachers dead in Texas. There are pending proposals in Congress for gun control, but the certainty of their passage is still not assured. El Aguilar has the story.
Gun control reform remains questionable here in the United States, and Congress is nowhere near in passing any gun reforms. Democrats want stricter gun laws, while Republicans oppose to them. In the past weeks, shootings and mass murders headlined the news, from the recent school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, the supermarket shooting in Buffalo, New York, church shooting in California, and even in the sporting event in Milwaukee. Golden State Warrior head coach Steve Kerr, in an emotional speech before a game, called out the U.S. Senate for not voting on background check legislation.
There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough.
To state the obvious, and Corey and a lot of other people here, I'm sick and tired. I'm just sick and tired of what's going on and continues to go on. The idea that an 18-year-old can walk into a store and buy weapons of war designed and marketed to kill is, I think, just wrong. It just violates common sense. Even the manufacturer, the inventor of that weapon, thought that as well.
Here in the U.S., anyone who wants to buy a gun from a licensed firearms dealer is subject to a background check through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, also known as NICS. The background check certifies that the buyer does not have any criminal record, or the person will not be permitted to own or purchase a weapon.
In the state of New Jersey, it is about the toughest there is. Okay, you have to go and apply for a pistol permit if you want one. Firearms ID card you have to have. And you have to apply for all this through the state police. You have to put in for your background checks. You put in for a psychiatric background check. Everything is checked. And then when you come here, we do another check on you. Okay, we call it in and we do a background check on you. And you have to go through the federal banks and come up clean. Okay, if you have any priors, any problems, it'll come back delayed or deficient, or they're going to not allow it.
How long does it take?
Usually it takes about an hour, 2 hours. Right now, because of so much sales, they're running about 3 days behind.
There are other means of acquiring firearms. Some people assemble the so-called ghost guns from buy, build, shoot kits or by 3D printing. Ghost guns are untraceable. Those weapons don't have serial numbers. In 2020, according to the CDC, 54% gun-related deaths were suicides, 43% were murders. The rest include unintentional and undetermined incidents and police-involved shootings. California Senator Dianne Feinstein appealed to the Senate to consider her Age 21 Act, a bill raising the minimum age to purchase assault weapons from 18 to 21 years old. The issue surrounds House Resolution Number 8, a bill that would expand background checks for all firearm sales in the country, including private and non-licensed resellers. To get this bill into law, it would need 60 votes in the Senate. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, together with Texas Senator John Cornyn, will meet with Democrats to come up with a reasonable bipartisan solution surrounding the mass shootings. There is a growing support from the Americans agreeing to stricter gun laws and measures, but that doesn't mean anything until the two parties meet on common grounds, pass and implement tougher and more aggressive gun reform laws. El Aguilar for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Senegal's President Macky Sall fired his health minister as his country mourned the death of 11 newborn babies in a hospital fire blamed on an electrical short circuit. The tragedy late Wednesday was just the latest in a series of hospital deaths that have exposed the weaknesses of the nation's healthcare system. Sall earlier announced the tragedy on Twitter and declared 3 days of mourning or national mourning. Senegal's health minister Abdoulaye Diouf Sarr, who has since been sacked from his post, visited the hospital. He said the state is waiting for the expert report from Senelec, the national electricity company of Senegal, to find out the cause of the fire.
À l'état actuel de la situation, j'aimerais effectivement partager la douleur avec les familles, parce qu'il faut absolument le dire, c'est extrêmement douloureux. C'est pourquoi d'ailleurs le chef de l'État a décidé de 3 jours de deuil national. Partager aussi la douleur avec le Khalife de Tidiane et tout Tivaouane, mais partager la douleur avec le peuple sénégalais. Aujourd'hui, il faut noter que nous attendons le rapport d'expertise technique de la Senelec qui va nous édifier sur l'origine du feu.
The city mayor Demba Diop said the fire had been caused by a short circuit in air conditioning had accelerated the flames. He denied allegations from the babies' families and across social media that the babies had been left alone, saying a midwife and nurse were present on Wednesday evening. The mayor said the 2 nurses fainted on site but were revived.
A 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of East Timor today, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. USGS said the quake struck at a depth of 51.4 kilometers off the eastern tip of Timor Island, which is split between East Timor and Indonesia. The Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning and Mitigation System immediately issued the tsunami warning for the region. East Timor sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, causing it to experience frequent earthquakes.
A fire in Greece destroyed 20 tons of clothes and blankets donated to war-hit Ukrainian refugees. At the charge site, the founder of an aid group was fighting back tears, feeling sorry to see the donations get destroyed. On the other hand, an aid coordinator was thankful a haul of medicine and food was unharmed. The fire department said the fire broke out in a storage area outside the Peace and Friendship Indoor Stadium near the port of Piraeus. It added that nobody was hurt and the causes are still under investigation. Greece is hosting over 30,000 refugees from Ukraine, nearly 8,000 of whom are minors.
Alexei Arestovich, a key advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, admitted in a live stream that Russian troops have taken over the town of Liman in the northern Donetsk region, with Ukrainian forces reportedly withdrawing west-southwest towards Slavyansk. Although Arestovich cited unconfirmed reports, a Russian military correspondent, Alexander Kots, posted a video on Telegram of Russian troops in Liman. Kots added that Ukrainian troops fled west and southwest while covering their retreat with artillery fire. News of the Ukrainian defeat in Liman comes amid the ongoing advance of Russian forces from Popasnaya, which threatens to completely cut off thousands of troops loyal to Kyiv in the Severodonetsk-Luhansk pocket. Russia said it launched a special military operation in Ukraine for the latter's failure to implement the terms of the Minsk agreements.
President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the West to stop playing around with Russia and impose tougher sanctions on Moscow to end its senseless war in Ukraine. Zelensky added that Ukraine would remain independent. The only question was at what price. Zelensky's criticism of the West piled up in recent days as the European Union moves slowly towards a possible Russian oil embargo and as thousands of Russian forces try to encircle the 2 key eastern cities of Severodonetsk and Luhansk. Western military analysts see the battle for Severodonetsk and Luhansk as a potential turning point in the war following the surrender of Ukraine's garrison in Mariupol last week.
Катастрофічне розгортання подій все ж таки можна було би зупинити, якби світ поставився до ситуації в Україні як до своєї ситуації. Якби сильні світу цього не загравали з Росією, а реально натиснули заради припинення війни.
Zelensky also ranted about disagreements within the EU on more sanctions against Russia and asked why some nations were being allowed to block the plan. Zelensky's comments mark the second day in a row that he sharpened his criticism of the West's approach to the war.
Food shortages across the globe are not Russia's fault, but it is ready to help alleviate them by exporting grain and fertilizers if the West removes its politically motivated embargo. This was what Russian President Vladimir Putin told Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi during a phone call. Putin stressed it was groundless to accuse Russia of problems with the supply of agricultural products on global markets, according to the Kremlin's readout of the call. Putin attributed the situation to disruptions in production and supply chains, as well as the financial policies of Western countries during the coronavirus pandemic, which were only aggravated by the anti-Russian restrictions imposed by the U.S. and the EU over the conflict in Ukraine. Putin said Russia is ready to make a significant contribution to overcoming the food crisis by exporting both fertilizer and grain if the Western embargo is lifted. He also confirmed Draghi that Russia has reopened the Azov Sea for maritime traffic and maintains a safe lane in the Black Sea for civilian shipping, which he said was being hindered by Kyiv. The call, which came at Draghi's request, follows reports in the Italian media that his government has proposed a peace plan for Ukraine.
Next up, China and Russia veto a U.S.-led bid to toughen UN sanctions on North Korea over its missile launches. Monkeypox suspected to have reached the city of Toronto in Canada. And a UN human rights observer says the Taliban government's restrictions on Afghan women are making them invisible. More stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Sa bawat sumbong may responding katapat, hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sinuman ang nangangailangan. Dalawang senior citizen na bulag dahil sa posibleng ammonia leak sa likod lamang ng kanilang tahanan, ating natulungan. Isang mahabang sidewalk sa Caloocan na ilang taong ginawang extension ng mga junk shop sa lugar, nasampulan ng MMDA.
You are still watching Mata ng Agila International. China and Russia vetoed a U.S.-led bid at the United Nations to toughen sanctions on North Korea over its missile launches, laying bare divisions that the Western envoys fear would be exploited by Pyongyang. The Security Council resolution put forward by the U.S. would have reduced the amount of oil North Korea could legally import as punishment for its testing of an intercontinental ballistic missile this week. The resolution enjoyed the support of 13 other members of the Security Council, although some U.S. allies quietly wondered whether Washington should have gone ahead with a vote, knowing the unflinching opposition from Beijing and Moscow. China, the closest ally of North Korea and Russia, whose relations with the West have sunk over its conflict with Ukraine, said they would have preferred a non-binding statement rather than a fresh resolution with teeth against Pyongyang. China's ambassador to the UN, Zhang Jun, said the U.S. should not place one-sided emphasis on the implementation of sanctions alone. It should also work to promote a political solution. Zhang warned that sanctions would cause an escalation and humanitarian consequences for Pyongyang, which recently announced a COVID outbreak. At the recent UN Security Council meeting, the U.S. and China took contradictory stances on how to reduce tensions with North Korea. While Washington called for more sanctions against Pyongyang, Beijing called for their easing.
当前朝鲜半岛局势紧张的一面趋于突出，螺旋式升级的前景令人担忧。中方呼吁各方保持冷静克制，坚持对话协商的正确方向。
Zhang also alleged that the U.S. wanted the resolution to fail to spread the flames of war as part of its wider effort to pressure China. Russia's ambassador Vasilina Benzia also accused the U.S. of ignoring Pyongyang's appeals to stop hostile activities. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden's administration continuously said it is willing to speak with North Korea, but without any preconditions.
Western powers sounded the alarm over leaked plans to dramatically expand China's security and economic reach in the South Pacific in what one regional leader called a thinly veiled effort to lock island states into Beijing's orbit. If approved by Pacific Island nations, the wide-ranging draft agreement and a 5-year plan will give China a larger security footprint in a region seen as crucial to the interests of the United States and its allies.
We've expressed our concerns publicly about the security agreement between Solomon Islands and China. And the reason we have is we think there are, as do other Pacific nations, we think there are consequences. We think that it's important that the security of the region be determined by the region. And historically that has been the case, and we think that's a good thing. And we want to be a partner of choice. We want to demonstrate to your nation and other nations of the region that we are a partner who can be trusted, who can be reliable, and historically we have been. I think you've seen a lot of Australian development assistance. We want to work with you on your priorities. We want to work together as part of the Pacific.
Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Wang Yi rejected Western criticism of Beijing's deepening engagement in the Pacific as he launched an 8-nation tour to present a potentially lucrative offer. While warning other countries not to interfere, Wang stressed in the Solomon Islands capital Honiara that China's cooperation with Pacific Island countries does not target any country. He even hailed a mutual trust and even wider cooperation between China and the Solomon Islands.
I hope you share with me the enthusiasm of knowing that we will meet again, and that this meeting was only the first of many in what I hope can be a new era of global understanding.
We've expressed our concerns publicly about the security agreement between Solomon Islands and China. And the reason we have is we think there are...
While the Western powers expressed worries about China's plan for the South Pacific, Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare backed the One China principle over Taiwan.
The 51st edition of the World Economic Forum has wrapped up in Davos, Switzerland. It's the first in-person meeting since the pandemic. Last year's summit was done virtually. This year's gathering was different. There were COVID tests, but no snow and no Russian delegation. Delegates had to be vaccinated and tested for COVID before traveling to Davos. Upon arrival, another COVID test was required. Typically, the summit is held in the winter in January. This year, instead of snow-covered streets, participants were greeted by rain. And because of the war in Ukraine, organizers decided to exclude the Russians. In his closing remarks, Forum President Borge Brende expressed optimism about the future.
I hope you share with me the enthusiasm of knowing that we will meet again, and that this meeting was only the first of many in what I hope can be a new era of global understanding, and cooperation.
A United Nations human rights observer says the Taliban government's restrictions on Afghan women are making them invisible. Richard Bennett says since the Taliban stormed back to power last year, it has imposed harsh restrictions on women and girls to comply with its austere vision of Islam.
Measures such as the suspension of girls' secondary education, severe barriers to employment, no opportunities to participate in political and public life, limits on freedom of movement, association and expression, directives on mahram, enforcing a strict form of hijab and strong advice to stay at home, fit the pattern of absolute gender segregation, and are aimed at making women invisible in society.
Monkeypox is suspected to have reached the city of Toronto in Canada's Ontario province. Yolanda Aspiras has the details.
Toronto now has its first suspected case of monkeypox in the city. The individual, a man in his 40s, had recent contact with another individual who traveled to Montreal, Quebec. Montreal is the first city in Canada with the most recent confirmed cases of monkeypox. According to the Government of Canada, monkeypox is most often mild and most individuals who contract the virus recover on their own. It is rare that death occurs due to the illness. A warning, the images that will be shown may be disturbing to some viewers. Monkeypox is most often identifiable for its rash, lesions that often start on the face or extremities and last for 14 to 21 days. According to Public Health Ontario, transmissions often happen from animals to humans or person to person. The spread from the person to person happens when in contact with lesions, scalps, bodily fluids or secretions, and contaminated items. Contagion usually begins when the rash forms and until the skin heals completely. Dr. Theresa Tam, Canada's top doctor, reassures Canadians that although monkeypox, just like any other illness, is serious, the virus has limited spread compared to COVID-19, measles, or even the common flu. Yolanda Aspiras, Toronto, Ontario.
A fugitive member of Colombia's drug cartel wanted by the United States was killed by police in the South American country. President Ivan Duque announced on Twitter that Juan Larinson Castro Estupinan, alias Matamba, a former Gulf Clan boss and one of Colombia's most wanted criminals, had been neutralized. Defense Minister Diego Molano said that Matamba, who escaped prison in March pending a decision on his own extradition to the United States, was killed in combat in a police operation in the municipality of Bolivar.
Llegamos a capturarlo, se enfrentó con la policía, hay incautado un fusil, una pistola, 2 revólveres, varia munición. La información que tengo es que habría lanzado una granada a los comandos jungla de la policía.
The Gulf Clan, Colombia's biggest drug cartel, launched a revenge campaign this month after its boss, Dairo Antonio Usaga, was extradited to the U.S. to face trafficking charges there.
A Fiji court dismissed an appeal to stop U.S. authorities from seizing the Russian super yacht Amadeya, with the judgment set to take effect in 7 days. The $300 million yacht was linked by the United States to billionaire oligarch and politician Suleiman Kerimov, who is the target of sanctions. It was impounded on arrival in Fiji a month ago at Washington's request. But the yacht's registered owners, Emilia Marine Investments, denied Kerimov was the owner and contended that the Fijian law under which the Amadeya was detained did not allow for the U.S. to take it away. Faisal Hanif told the press he plans to take the case to Fiji's Supreme Court and will apply for a court order to stop U.S. agents sailing the Amadea from Fiji before the appeal is heard. The U.S. had sanctioned Kerimov in 2018 for alleged money laundering, and he has since been further sanctioned by several countries following Russia's conflict with Ukraine. However, Hanif consistently said the U.S. had no right to seize the Amadea until the ownership issue was resolved.
The University of California's system wants its graduates to leave its campuses not only with their hard-earned diplomas, but also without any debt to pay. How? Alex Gilman reports.
The University of California says by the end of the decade, it wants its students to be able to graduate debt-free. Graduates of bachelor degree programs end up owing an average of nearly $19,000 when they get their diploma. To achieve the debt-free goal by 2030, the university will encourage undergraduate students to rely on state and federal supports instead of student loans. As well, the university will offer part-time jobs to supplement government grants. Priority will be given to students from lower and middle-class families. Those jobs would be things like managing a campus restaurant, office work, or even career-related research. More than 280,000 students are registered at the various campuses of the University of California. The debt-free goal depends on the cooperation from the state legislature and the governor's office. The university also has to do its part to reach this goal. It has to come up with ways to cut costs. This could mean more online offerings and reducing staff through attrition. Alex Gilman, Mata ng Agila International, Los Angeles, California. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Senate bill creating the Bulacan Airport City Economic Zone in Freeport approved on third and final reading.
Dyson moving beyond vacuum cleaners and hand dryers by developing robots capable of helping with household chores.
And White House says U.S. President Joe Biden to receive K-pop megastars BTS next week.
Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return.
This portion.
Sa bawat sumbong may responding katapat, hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sinuman ang nangangailangan. Dalawang senior citizen na bulag dahil sa posibleng ammonia leak sa likod lamang ng kanilang tahanan, ating natulungan. Isang mahabang sidewalk sa Caloocan na ilang taong ginawang extension ng mga junk shop sa lugar, nasampulan ng MMDA. Biktima ng isang car rent tangay modus, dumulog sa responde. At sa ating e-responder, grupong tumutulong sa pagpaparami at pagsagip sa mga pawikan at iba pang hayop, ating sasaluduhan. Mapapanood nyo kami sa mga sumusunod na mga channels.
Starlink satellite internet service owned by tech billionaire Elon Musk gets the seal of approval from the National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC. In a statement, the NTC said it recently approved the registration of Starlink Internet Services Philippines Incorporated as a value-added service, or VAS. NTC Commissioner Gamaliel Cordoba said the NTC is steadfast in helping ensure that rollout of Starlink's internet access services will be done expeditiously and professionally. The approval will allow the company to start providing internet services in the country. Using advanced satellites in a low orbit, Starlink will enable video calls, online gaming, streaming, and other high data activities that historically have not been possible with satellite internet. The Department of Trade and Industry previously announced that the Philippines is set to be the first country in Southeast Asia to avail of Musk's Starlink technology. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez also committed to finalizing SpaceX's entry into the Philippines within the remaining months of the Duterte administration. The NTC said that the Starlink service offers high-speed, low-latency satellite internet service with a download speed between 100 to 200 Mbps.
The Senate has approved on its third and final reading the bill creating the Bulacan Airport City Economic Zone and Freeport. Mayan Corvera has the story.
"21 senators unanimously voted for the passage of Senate Bill number 7575, or the proposal to construct a domestic and international airport in Bulacan. The measure is expected to decongest Metro Manila and give job opportunities to millions of Filipinos. The Bulacan Air Hub will be designed to accommodate a maximum of 100 million travelers every year. A special economic zone and Freeport Authority will also be set up for free entry and exit of products. Last year, San Miguel Corporation was given a 50-year franchise to construct and operate the domestic and international airport on 2,500 hectares of land in Bulacan. This is Mean Corvera reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kinder has withdrawn more than 3,000 tons of products from the market over salmonella fears. This is the biggest product recall in the last 20 years, according to the head of Ferrero France. Chocolate products made at the Kinder factory in Belgium were found to contain salmonella, which resulted in 150 cases in 9 European countries. Nicolas Nekov said the contamination came from a filter located in a vat for dairy butter. The factory's closure and the health concerns left a dent of tens of millions of euros and were blows to its owner, Ferrero. But the company hopes to start up the factory again with 50% of the health and safety inspections to be carried out by an approved external lab. Nekov said they have asked for a reopening from June 13 to relaunch production as soon as possible.
Dyson is pushing beyond vacuum cleaners and hand dryers. Now with the tech company will develop robots capable of helping with household chores. Dyson announced its plans to create a major robotics center at its facility at Hulavington Airfield to work on new types of domestic robots. The company revealed glimpses of some of its work in a video at the International Conference on Robotics and Automation in Philadelphia. In the video, robot arms are briefly seen picking up plates, a bottle of detergent, and a soft toy. But as to what kind of commercial devices this work might lead to, Dyson is too careful not to reveal much of its tech. Founded in the United Kingdom, the company is now stationed in Singapore.
The Golden State Warriors are heading back to the NBA Finals after missing it for the past 2 years. They closed out their series yesterday against Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, taking Game 5 with a score of 120 to 110. Injuries plagued the Warriors the past years. This year, however, things fell into place with Golden State stars Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green back on the court together with the Warriors' young talents. The Warriors won the series 4-1. After Dallas took Game 4 to avoid a sweep, the series headed back to San Francisco. The Warriors held off a late-game comeback effort by Doncic and the Mavericks in Game 5 to secure their spot in this year's Warriors NBA Finals. The Western Conference trophy was presented to Golden State in front of their fan base, Dub Nation. Stephen Curry won the Magic Johnson Western Conference MVP trophy. Golden State will play the winner of the Miami Heat-Boston Celtics matchup.
Sad news for the film and music industry. Actor Ray Liotta, known for his roles in Goodfellas and Field of Dreams, has died at the age of 67. His publicist told CNN that Ray was working on a project in the Dominican Republic called Dangerous Waters when he passed in his sleep. He is survived by his daughter Carson and his fiancée JC Nitolo. Another death, Andy Fletcher, keyboardist of one of the founding members of iconic British electronic band Depeche Mode, has also passed away at the age of 60. His death was announced via Depeche Mode's official Twitter account. However, no details of the cause of death were mentioned.
U.S. President Joe Biden will receive K-pop megastars BTS next week as part of a series of events celebrating Asian Americans and denouncing racism against them. Anti-Asian sentiment and violence in the U.S. have grown during the coronavirus pandemic, which originated in Wuhan, China. The White House said in a statement that Biden will receive the Korean boy band on May 31st to discuss Asian inclusion and representation and to address anti-Asian hate crimes and discrimination, which have become more prominent issues in recent years. It called BTS youth ambassadors who spread a message of hope and positivity across the world. Last year, during a spate of anti-Asian hate crimes in the U.S., BTS tweeted about their own experience with discrimination, saying they endured expletives without reason and were mocked for the way they look. The rise in anti-Asian hate crimes and hostility toward Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, or AAPI, comes amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, between March 19, 2020 and December 31st, 2021, more than 10,000 hate incidents against AAPI persons were reported. Now, Biden, in his part, already signed a bipartisan bill addressing the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes into law in May 2021. Here are some of the major historical events that happened today. In 1905, the Japanese fleet destroyed the Russian East Sea Fleet in the Battle of Tsushima, the only decisive clash between modern steel battleships in history. In 1951, the Chinese Communists forced the Dalai Lama to surrender his army to Beijing. And in 1995, actor Christopher Reeve was paralyzed from the neck down after falling from his horse in a riding competition in Culpeper, Virginia. Reeve was the original actor in Superman movies.
Tonight's broadcast ends with a quote from American talk show host Oprah Winfrey. You get in life what you have the courage to ask for.
And you have to make it count. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates in our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Have a happy weekend. Trusted, connected, on point.